Hello, and welcome to the Controls and Basic Movement tutorial for Blocker. My name is PJ Reeves, and I am the creator of Digital Stage Manager and the Blocker app. In this tutorial, I'm going to go over the controls for Blocker and some simple movement. To get started, we're going to create a new scene by tapping the new button. It's going to ask us for a title of the scene, and for this tutorial, I'm simply going to type in test. Now that I entered the title, I'm presented with a blank scene. And just to go over the controls, I'm going to tap our main menu here, Help, and Controls. This gives us an overlay of what the controls are. If this is the first time you've ever opened up Blocker, this screen will be shown automatically once you create your title. So starting on the left, we have our main menu button. We have the title of our scene. In the center on the top, we have our main play button. You must have a song or a timer loaded as well as at least one element on the stage for this button to be enabled. Next we have our Choose Background Image button, our Hide and Show Points and Lines button, our Set a Point Marker button, which is currently grayed out as we have no elements on stage to add points to, Add an Element button. Moving to the bottom left of the screen, we have Choose a Song button, or Set the Timer if our timer is chosen. It's currently blank, but next to that is our song title as we don't have a song selected, or our timer info. Following that, we have our Play Music button or Play Timer button. Then we have our Music or Timer Scrubber. After that, we have our current location of song or current location of timer, depending on which one you're using. We have our Preview Movement button, which is currently grayed out as, again, we have no elements on this screen. Our Preview Options, which allows us to change the preview settings for our animation, and the Edit Selected Element button, which is currently grayed out because, again, we don't have any elements on the stage. So to get rid of this overlay, I'm simply going to tap the center of the screen, and I'm going to go back to our main menu. So our music and timer options at the top allows us to choose between a timer or music. And I can set the timer to exactly how long, up to 10 minutes, and up to 59 seconds. For this tutorial, I'm simply just going to add 5 minutes and click Save. Next we have Generate Paperwork, which is currently grayed out as we don't have any movement on stage recorded yet. We have our Help button, which gives us some help options, just like the control overlay you just saw. We have a little help for editing an element, editing a marker, and previewing movement. Then we have our Save button, which allows us to save our scene. The scene doesn't automatically save, so anytime you make changes, it's always a good habit to hit the Save button. And then we have Quit, which does exactly what it says. It quits us to the main menu. So I'm going to close out of this, and then I'm going to continue on with the controls. So right now we have a blank scene. And if you look at the bottom left, the music note has changed into a timer. And if I tap the timer, it allows us to edit how much time we want right there, instead of going back to the main menu. I can also hit the play button, which starts our timer. I can scrub through our timer and start in that position as well. And I'm just going to go back to 0 here. So if I want to set a background image for my scene, I'm going to tap the background image button. This brings up our photo library that's currently on your iPad, and you can use any photo that's currently in your iPad. For this scene, I'm going to use a ground plan that I used for Kiss Me Kate. Once I chose an image to use, I can scale it to however I want. So between the top bar here and the bottom where it says Move and Scale, that'll be what it's used for. So I want this to be our background. Once I'm satisfied with that, I'm going to tap the Use button. And depending on the size of your image, it's going to stretch it so it fills in that space. So the bigger the image for the background, the better. Next, I'm going to go ahead and add an element to the stage by tapping the Add Element button. And for this tutorial, I'm simply going to add a circle, and let's add a square as well. So now that I have my elements on stage, if I want to edit one of them, I can simply choose which one, put my finger on it, and the edit button or menu will pop up. I'm editing the circle because it's the last element I touched, and I can change the color. I can give it a name, so let's say Bob. That's my go-to name for any testing application. I can give it notes. It's like Bob will start stage right. And then I simply hit save, and there's Bob. Same thing with the square. So instead of holding my finger on the element, I'm going to select the square by moving it or tapping it. And then I'm going to hit the edit button at the bottom right. And I'm presented with the same edit menu as I was with the circle. I'm going to give them a name of Jerry. And I'm going to hide my keyboard here. And I'm going to change his color to red. And I'm going to give him some notes saying he starts stage left. And save. Now I have Bob and Jerry on my stage. So to go over simple movement, I'm going to start with Jerry, and I'm going to tap our add marker button. And you'll see him fade out, and you'll see a black dot in the center. That's our marker, or a point, if you will. So I'm going to drag Jerry to I want him to move to, and then I'm going to add another marker. And you'll see it fades out, another marker is added, and you'll see a red dotted line drawn to that marker. That indicates Jerry's movement. So if I choose Bob, and I do the same thing for him, again he'll fade out so you can see the point behind him. I'm going to move him to where I want him. I'm going to add another point for him. And now there's Bob's point, there's Jerry's point. If I wanted to preview this animation, I can hit the orange preview button at the bottom right, and it'll play that movement. Now what this does, the preview button, it actually shows us all the animations on stage all at once. I can change the duration from 5 seconds, which is the default, to 10 if I want, just to make it last a little bit longer so I can see everything more in depth. Hit done, and then I'm going to hit play again, and now the movement takes 10 seconds. Now let's say, all right, I know what Bob does, but I just want to see what Jerry does. I can simply grab Jerry, since this gives him focus, touch the preview settings, and now I'm going to hit the switch to single. What this does is this plays the animation for the last element selected. And what to select an element, simply take your finger and drag him a little bit or touch him. And that makes him the last element. And now I'm going to hit preview, and now just Jerry moves. If I'm satisfied with what Jerry does, and now I want to see what Bob does singled out, I'll just do the same thing. I'm just going to touch Bob so he moves a little bit, so he grabs focus. I'm going to hit play. And there's Bob. So currently, I don't have anything set to the timer. So if I hit the main play button, nothing's really going to happen. It's just going to play the timer, but it's not going to play any movement because our markers are set to 0. And what I mean by that is if I take my finger and I hold it on one of the markers, it'll bring up the options, and you'll see it says empty. There's no movement here. I should say there's no time information for this point. And usually the first ones don't have any time information as it's your first point. So I'm going to tap away from that, and I'm going to come to our second marker here. And again, because everything was set at 0 for the timer, there's no time information for this marker, so it's empty. So to fix that, I'm going to hit delete. It's going to ask me if I want to delete this marker, and yes, I want to delete it, so I'm going to hit OK. Same thing with Bob. I'm going to delete it. And now I'm just going to simply set it using my timer. And to do that, let's go ahead and get rid of these points so I can show you from the start. All right, so now there are no markers on stage. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take Jerry, and my timer, my scrubber's at 0, 0. Everything's zeroed out. I'm going to add my point. Same thing with Bob. I'm going to move him to where I want him, add my point. And now let's say I want Jerry to come to this down center in 32 seconds. I'll move him there, add my point. And then at 32 seconds, I want Bob to end up beside him. Because maybe they're doing a duo. I don't know. So I'm going to add a point to him as well. And now, if I move Jerry out of the way and I hold my finger on this point, I have time information. And what this is, it's a delay timer. So if I want both of them to move at the same time, I wouldn't do anything. I would simply hit play, and they're both going to reach their point in 32 seconds. And there they are. So that's great. But maybe I want Jerry to be delayed by a couple seconds. Like I don't want him to move right away. I want him to wait, let's say 4 seconds before he starts moving. So I added that point, and now the delay is set to 4 seconds, and I tap away. And now when I move the scrubber back to 0 and then hit the main play button, Bob's going to move, Jerry's not. He's going to wait 4 seconds. But you'll notice Jerry will actually move a little bit faster than Bob now because he still has to make that point in 32 seconds. So he's going to fill in the gap by increasing his speed. So if I didn't want to see any of the points on stage and I'm satisfied with their movement, all I have to do is tap the hide marker button. And now the points are gone, but if I still move everything and hit play, they still move to their corresponding points. You just can't see the lines or the point markers themselves. What this does, say you have a big scene and you have a lot of movement, this will actually make your scene run really smooth if you hide it because it doesn't have to keep redrawing the lines and the points. So it'll be more efficient for your iPad. And also, when you generate your paperwork, which I can do now because I have movement, you can either show it with the lines or show it without the lines. For example, I'm going to generate paperwork without the lines. And I want to open it up just in Chrome. This creates a PDF of my scene, and I can scroll down. I see the image of our scene, that's their starting point. And when I scroll down, I can see Bob moves to position 1 at 0, 0. That's our start point. And then my next movement, and it creates a page for every point. Bob and Jerry move to position 2 at 32 seconds. So now let's say I want to see the points. I'm going to go back to our app, and I'm going to unhide that. I'm going to go to main menu and go back to generate paperwork, and I'm going to go back to Chrome. Now I have the lines and points, and I can see it. So if I was going to create this for my prompt book, this is what I would do, so I can see where they're going to. Go back to our app. And now that I'm done with that, I'm going to save this.